Hi, I'm Brandon Poe, founder of Poe Group Advisors and creator of the Accounting Practice Academy. You are listening to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast, where we talk about stuff in the accounting world. If you're looking to buy or sell a practice, we are the premier accounting practice intermediary firm in the industry. Check us out at PoeGroupAdvisors.com. If you're a firm owner looking to build a more profitable practice while actually reducing owner hours, sign up for our practice management workshop, which only runs a few times per year. Learn more at accountingpracticeacademy.com.
Hey Accountant's Flight Plan listeners, today's podcast is a little bit different. We decided to create a webinar that was in a bit more of a Q&A style format that seemed more like a podcast, and after we finished it, Brandon and I thought, well, maybe our podcast audience would enjoy it. So this episode is that webinar. There's a lot of amazing questions and great insights from our audience members, and we hope you enjoy.
Welcome to Growth Lessons from Top-Notch Firms, how to make 100% of your revenue hit the bottom line. My name is Ian Brennan. This is Brandon Poe. Let's do a little intro. Brandon, for those who don't know you, can you give a little bit of a background?
Yes. So I am a CPA as well. I started my career at Ernst & Young, and after a short stint in public accounting, my entrepreneurial spirit took over, and I have been involved with several startups. In 2003, I started selling firms. So Poe Group Advisors exclusively sells CPA firms throughout the US and Canada. In 2010, I wrote a book that was published by the AICPA and by CPA Canada called Accountant's Flight Plan. And the interesting thing about the book is it really came from the brokerage business. So I've always just been curious about what drives success in firms, and I'd have clients that were really, really successful. And you have to understand, we look at profit and loss statements on accounting firms on a daily basis, and we have that privy to see those results. So whenever results really struck me, I would go back to my client and say, hey, how did you do this? Like, how have you had such a tenured staff? Or how are your margins what they are? Or how are your owner hours so low? And I would journal these things. And one day I was in the car and my wife said, you really should, you've got a book there. You could write a book with that. I'm like, gosh, why didn't I think of that? You're right.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
so I did write a book, and from that, some private coaching stints came around, and then in 2019, all of that sort of went into Accounting Practice Academy, and we built it as a virtual workshop prior to the pandemic. Didn't know what the pandemic was going to be like. We filmed it actually during kind of the most severe lockdown periods, which was an interesting experience. And so we've been running it. This is the third year, and we are starting to see some pretty amazing results from clients who've gone through APA. So we're, part of this day is to make you aware of kind of what are those successful ingredients to changing a firm, and hopefully get you guys to take a look at Accounting Practice Academy.
Cool. Love that. Yeah. And I'll give a little background. We've got our first poll. Let me go ahead and throw this up, and I'll give you guys a little background on how I got started in all this. I just sent that poll out. How far away are you from selling your firm? Go ahead and fill that out, and we'll get to chatting about it. But my background is, I came out, Brandon had approached me, and he was like, Ian, you do video work. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, want to make this virtual workshop? And I was like, let's do it. And we got in, and after we filmed it and produced it and got it set up and ran it for the first time, I kind of saw how, for lack of a better term, magical it was. I was like witnessing the benefit that it was having on all these firm owners and seeing how it was getting their time back. And I mean, Mario, even, we got a testimony. He's like, I'm not a stranger at the dinner table. I get to be with my kids again. And I'm like, once I saw that, I was like, I want to work with this. So I've been here for 3.5 years now and just absolutely loving it. So yeah, these poll results are coming in. We got a good spread today. Looking at some are in that less than 3 years, a good chunk are in that 3 to 10, and then 10 plus for sure.
Yeah. And
nice.
our premise is build a firm that you can sell easily. The better you build your firm, the easier it will sell and the more money it will sell for.
Yep.
And in the meantime, you get to enjoy the higher quality firm. And so a firm that's easier to own, easier to run, lucrative and fun, is also easy to sell. So
Yep.
they go hand in hand.
Yep. Love that. So let's get right down to it. This webinar is about one thing for the most part. How do I get the growth to go straight to the bottom line? Brandon,
Yeah.
What can you say about that?
Well, first, I want everybody to look at this image that we have. And this was sort of interesting how that image came about. It was sort
Not
of
the
by
most
accident.
intentional choice as the design team thought about.
Yeah. So, when people think about growth, some people think of that word, especially in today's, I guess, difficult staffing environment for CPAs. Growth's like, I can't grow. What are you talking about? Growth? I've got all I can say grace over. So you have to define what growth is, first of all. And in the image, you see there's the big clock there. And that was sort of the thing that accidentally happened on this image. When we, I guess, created this webinar, we were thinking, growth is primarily how do you grow the bottom line? How do you grow your profits? How do you grow your top line? How do you, scale your business? But time is such a key component in all this. And for some people, we've had several members of APA where their goal was to grow their free time. They wanted to take back some time in their life. And that was their sole focus coming in. And the interesting thing about that is those people have accomplished that. They've definitely gotten a hold of their schedule and have a more easy firm to own. But I can't think of any that actually experienced any revenue decline whatsoever. So the first thing is define what growth means to you. So I'm going to start with an example of someone who kind of grew extremely well in both top line, cash flow, and time. And that's a client that we had last year. We had a member that had a pretty successful firm when they came in. They were doing about just over $1 million in revenue. Cash flow to owner was already at 50% for a 2-partner firm. So, they had a lot of things going for them. However, they were starting to feel burnout and starting to think about their exit time frame, and they were just not enjoying the firm. And so they decided to hop into APA, I think primarily to kind of relieve that feeling of burnout and that time pressure that they were constantly feeling. And they ended up actually so let me make sure I get the story right. So they hopped into APA last year, 2021, and they were very good at implementing. And so one of the things that we really wanted to do is create the structure where people were motivated to implement this stuff. Well, they implemented extremely well. They did a lot of the things, and I'm going to talk about primarily what they did. But in the end, they did decide to put their firm on the market, and we listed it. It went under contract pretty rapidly. And then about, 2 to 3 months after the original offer was signed, the buyer missed some key deadlines in the agreement. And so they had it out. And they called me and said, I think we want to let this deal collapse. And so we talked about it. And what was driving this was a couple of things, but one thing in particular was the results were starting to really show of the things that they had implemented. And they actually increased their revenue by about 45%. So they grew in that 1 year. Their projected growth for 2022 was going to be up about $500,000 for 2022, with about between 300 and 400,000 of that all falling to the bottom line. So, and then on top of that, they said, look, we've had the easiest tax season we've had in years. Like, we're not working all this overtime. We've accomplished a lot on the time front. And so we feel like we're underpricing this business, and we're not, we can get more in the marketplace. And so we increased the price of the firm quite substantially to reflect the new results. They were blown away. Honestly, Ian and I were all blown away too. Like, that was pretty amazing.
I'd say it was one of the first times we saw somebody go through the workshop and really follow it, like, to a T. Like, because there's so much in it, because we trimmed so much fat, like, each week you're coming away with so many little nuggets, but they were able to implement as many as they could throughout each module. And it was just, it was inspiring to watch.
Yeah. And I think they already had a successful firm. And so they had a good team. And so I think that was a key.
They could delegate down. Yeah.
Yeah. Not everybody already has a great team in place. So sometimes it takes longer to get these results because you don't have the right people to hand things off to and so forth. But they had a lot going for them, and they were just able to capitalize on these things. So, when we do this webinar, we're like, okay, we're going to go straight to kind of the secret. It sounds like a great secret. It's not really, it sounds like a simple thing. It's not a secret, but the implementation is the key. So essentially what this firm did was, they did the sort of went through the process that we recommend, which first you have to prune, right? So you get a snapshot, you find out where you are, you look at your practice from you kind of zoom out and see a bigger perspective of your firm. You look at it like a buyer would look at it, right? And then, without kind of being attached to the firm, kind of having that detached point of view, you decide, okay, where does the scalpel go? What do I cut, right? Because I would say most people that come into this program or interested in this program are already very, very busy people. And so the first thing you have to do is help them create capacity. And so the analysis and the perspective, and then deciding what you want is step one. And then deciding what to cut is really essential in that early phase. This particular firm, I think they ended up letting go about over 100 clients, I want to say. It's a pretty substantial pruning of the practice. They used our delegation tool to reorganize some of the work that was being done in the firm. So we have a free tool that we can help, that you can just access. We call it the 3-bucket tool. And we can, Amanda, are you on? You can share that link in the chat so people can just grab that. But, it's a really simple tool. All the tools are really simple. Again, it's back to that implementation. If we made this too complicated, people wouldn't implement. So what that does is not only do you fill it out as the owner, but you give it to your team and let them fill it out. And it's amazing what you discover that they want to take off of their plate. So you create capacity for them, and then you can do something, what I call is add the 4th bucket. Like, okay, this is what's currently on your plate in the 3 buckets. Okay, if you could get some of these things off the plate, the 4th bucket is, what would you like to add to your plate? And so, staff members, they want to learn, they want to grow. They don't want to keep doing the same thing they're doing. So often what you see is that if you do this for the whole team, you might be able to hire kind of lower level, entry level, excuse me, losing my voice, entry level people, and get your kind of more established team members to step up. And it just energizes the whole team. And then the third thing that they really did extremely well is they redid their pricing in their practice. They refocused, they took some of that capacity that they had created from letting clients go. And some clients chose to leave because of the higher pricing. And then they just plowed their time and their energy into the clients that are willing to pay for it. And oftentimes, to grow, you don't need to add new clients. Now, most people do add new clients, because what happens is once you create that capacity, maybe you've kind of stopped looking for clients, or you even stopped taking new clients. Well, suddenly, if you have the capacity, you start quoting higher prices to new clients, and that can be a real good place to experiment with new pricing strategies. So most of our members do end up growing that way. But a lot of the growth just comes from existing clients that just want more. And most CPAs I talk with, it's like, hey, if I had more time, I could do tax planning, or I could do some light advisory, or, I've got special projects that people want. Like, I just can't get to it all. So, that's what this firm did. I think pruning, just to broaden that a little bit, like we have had clients eliminate entire lines of business. Like, hey, I'm going to get out of audit work, or I'm going to get out of this. So it's all about focus, and honestly, pricing is a big part of the strategy.
But one thing I always note is it's really intentional pruning in pricing. And it's not just a across the board sweep. Like, everybody's like, well, what about my little old lady clients that I want to keep doing favors for, and I enjoy her and I'm grateful for her? There's nuance to it, and it's unique. And one of the things we always say when it comes to this workshop is it's not paint by numbers. It's not A, B, C, D, E, F, G. This is how you get a profitable firm. This is how you grow more. This is how you make more money. It's what is going on in your firm. Let's zoom out. Let's look at it from a really high level and see what cogs of the machine are turning well and which ones are fighting each other. And sometimes, like I know you always say, it's like if you're doing 1 or 2 audits a year, that's a cog that's slowing the entire machine down. And so if you can pull that out and say, wait a minute, this isn't profitable. We have to stay up to date every single year on how to do it right and well. We're just burning man hours. I think your team would be grateful to pull that cog out of the machine and slot it in with 1 or 2 more high quality clients. So it really, it comes down to perspective and intentional pruning.
It's like, none of this is really rocket science. Like, if you could go out and do it, you probably would have already done it. Right. So it's just having some time to focus on it. And people say, well, I don't have time to focus on it. Well, you're going to keep wasting your time until you do.
Yep, exactly. Where are you going to get it from?
Yeah. So,
it's always a little stretch. That's one of the things you had mentioned earlier. A lot of these firm owners they're at capacity already. They are burning with all engines ahead. So it's like you have to stretch a little bit, just a couple hours a week, to really cut back to get that next 20% of capacity. Yeah.
And we can talk more about, or we could talk about it now, just so people know, like the investment of time. It's about 3 hours a week for 8 weeks. It's an 8-week program. The dollar investment is $7,500 US. Just if anyone was curious about that, and we can talk more about format in the Q&A section. We'll go through formatting. Another thing, there's a lot of resources on the APA Accounting Practice Academy site. If you're really interested in growth, there is a growth guide that you can download. And if you could, Amanda, throw that in the chat. I interviewed a gentleman named Rob Siegfried, who grew his firm from scratch to $100 million. And it was a really interesting piece that I worked on in writing this. It was very much more of like an interview and a lesson from Rob, and he actually helped edit this white paper. Fascinating guy. He, about 12 years into his practice, he decided he wanted to go to personal production of zero. zero billable hours as the owner. And he had I guess, some relationships with other managing partners who had much larger firms at that point. And they said, Rob, you're nuts. Like, why would you even want to do that? Like, it doesn't take that much time to manage a practice. And, he said, well, I want to focus on growth, and I want to, focus on building my team. And, the rest is history, as they say. He really grew an amazing company. And growth it's counterintuitive, because I think so many people think of growth as I have to do more, or I have to have more clients, or I have to have more of this and more of that. It's actually a process of letting go. Anyone who's really gone through certain growth stages realizes, like, you're the one in the way of the growth as the owner. Usually, like, it's you have to learn to let go of something. You have to have the right team to do that, but you have to intentionally let things go. And then you have to focus on building your team and building a business that doesn't revolve around you. And that's
one thing to speak to that is what you had mentioned earlier with the 3-bucket tool. It's like a lot of the things that you might be dreading, even we use that in our organization all the time. It's something that you're dreading. Bailey and I are beyond excited to pick up, because that's another stage of climbing and growing and learning and becoming more effective and having more meaning in the company. And so it really is, as you let go, you're actually gifting to your team an opportunity to grow and something new and challenging and fun and worthwhile. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah. And a lot of, for lack of a better term, A players, they want to be in a firm where things are dynamic, where things are changing, and there's opportunity for them. And growth creates opportunity for your team. And so I think, in a CPA practice, you essentially have a choice between two models. You can be the crafts person, meaning you keep your practice intentionally small. You're selective about your clients, and you control the work. You do the work, or you review all the work, and you just really are happy with the quality. You enjoy the client service aspect. You want to minimize the hassles of managing a big team and the hassles of trying to grow and scale your business. And look, I know a lot of very successful CPAs that have chosen that model, and it's right for them, and they're very happy for a long period of time. They're happy with that model. And they've achieved a certain amount of balance in their life, and they're happy with their income. If that's the model that you choose, I do feel like this program can help you make that model even better. You can achieve more of what you want sooner with this program. And then there's the other choice is, hey, I want to scale my business. I don't really want to be in the role that I'm in right now. I don't enjoy my role. I don't want every decision coming on my plate. I don't want to, continue preparing or reviewing tax returns anymore. And this is not, I want to be able to focus on, something that gives me more pleasure and I have more value in the world. So, I think there's the two different models, and you have to know yourself to be able to pick the right one. And sometimes people try the scaling and they realize, man, this is not for me. I'm really more of a craftsman. I want that model. I've seen that happen too, is people attempt to scale and they get too frustrated and scale back.
Yeah. And even so, I think about that in that kind of craftsman model, and in both models, really, it's growth, like you were saying earlier, doesn't have to come from constantly pulling people in, but really it's about a focus on what's here and what are my top clients and how can I service them better? How can I get referrals? What are they willing to pay? It's really working with that high quality client, and that kind of perspective is vital.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, let's hit poll number 2. I'll send this out real quick. All right, guys, hop in and let us know, what is your biggest barrier to growth these days? Brandon, we always have some ideas because we're chimed into a lot of conversations with firm owners.
Yep.
And we're already starting to see the results, or I think where we thought it was going, finding and retaining team members.
Yep.
That seems to be really top of mind for just about everybody. Yeah, we'll definitely help into that.
Yeah, I think, for years, there's been so much buzz in the industry about technology and how technology is going to change this industry and it's transforming because of the tech. Well, I think the staffing challenge is for me, it kind of surprised me I feel like that is now the main driver of change in this profession. Now the tech is right there to kind of help pick up the slack, which is great. But the staffing, not only the staffing shortages, just the difficulty in finding CPAs in the market, but the generational shift in what they want from their work is changing the profession. And, which goes back to, like, I talked with a CPA yesterday who's, trying to grow some team members, and their margins honestly weren't where they needed to be. And, had a pretty good conversation about their margins. And I said, this is when pruning might be the better strategy. Like, rather than go out and try to quickly hire somebody so that you can manage the workload that you have, maybe the better thing to do is look at the workload and, like, analyze what you have and what you can get rid of, and maybe your current team can handle that. And guess what happens to your margins when you do that? Like, immediate change for the better. So, if you're in a shortage, if you have a scarcity of time, the analysis and pruning alone will give you massive value going through APA.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, we're kind of already touching on that, but what are some trends you're noticing in regards to staffing these days?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing it everywhere in the US, Canada, East Coast, West Coast. The demographic trend is affecting the profession in a big way. I'm seeing that of course, compensation is going up, but also flexibility, remote work is going up. I always, especially if you're in a rural area and you want to increase your staff, like if you really need a staff member, if you can offer remote work, well, guess what? You just increase the size of your candidate pool immensely. So remote work is a big help if you have staffing, real critical staffing needs.
Just to kind of rabbit hole on that a little bit, I kind of want to talk about and get your input on remote work for rural firms and how that affects the value of the firm and even down the road when looking to sell. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Well, I think in the US, and this is less so in Canada, just the way the current market is, we're saying no to a lot of rural firms that want to market their firms. We're just seeing that it's difficult to find buyers in small towns because a lot of the younger generation, they really want to be in a city where there's entertainment and a lot going on. They don't want to be in a small town. Now that trend could shift, but we're not seeing it. And often with a small town, there's just not a whole lot of demand for practices if it's not at least kind of close to a major metropolitan area. So, but we're selling cloud firms that it doesn't matter where they are. We had a really small town California cloud firm, and we had significant buyer interest, and we sold that. We had multiple offers on that deal. So I think if you're in a rural area, going to a remote capability for your team might help you kind of go into like full cloud and maybe look at maybe a full cloud conversion. If you're serious about kind of creating a more marketable firm, if you want to get out in 5 to 10 years, shift over to a full cloud firm. Now, what I mean by that is your team can work remotely and all of your client interaction is remote. So you convert those current clients to using your portal. There's no more meetings in person. There's no more drop-off possibility. In other words, you can have an office, but I think full cloud is even more desirable. So you kind of shift to managing a fully remote team. Cloud, when we say cloud firm, there's sort of like full cloud where your team is remote, and there's a hybrid where all your clients are remotely served, but you still have an office where the team comes together and collaborates. I like the cloud model. I think the cloud model is wonderful. It's not for everybody. I mean, if you're in a large metropolitan area and you've got if you have large clients, a lot of them still want to meet. And it's a model that's definitely trending.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for entertaining that rabbit hole. It's like going down that one. Our next question. So I noticed we had C, finding and retaining team members. That was our highest response there. But we also had D, being stuck in the business and not being able to work on it. How can someone get out of the bottleneck of their firm?
Well, you have to just do it, right? You have to get out of the way. You have to, as we say, sign up, take APA. That'll help. That'll get you out of that bottleneck spot. You got to let go. I think so many owners, CPAs, it's a profession that sort of requires highly reliable information. Is a perfectionistic tendency, and so letting go is not natural to a lot of CPAs. But that's what's required to get out of the way of your own. You have to get out of your own way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. It really comes down to perspective. Yeah. In my opinion, it's what are you doing that you don't need to be doing? And go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the big tells is like, if you can't go on vacation and leave your team in charge, like if you're checking email while you're on the beach, you're not taking a vacation, you're just working at the beach. And if you want to, I actually have a copy right here. Yeah. So if nothing else, like if you feel like this applies to you, we've got a free resource on the resources page at Accounting Practice Academy. Maybe Amanda can show the link. It's called the Unplugged Vacation. It's a free ebook. And if you really want a physical copy, we can mail you one. But if you want to take a good long time off without checking in with the office, and the perspective you get from that, it's worth it, especially if you haven't done it in a while.
Yeah. Well, and it acts as kind of one of Mitch Baldridge in his testimonial says this, and I love it. He's like, it acts as a force mechanism to build the firm that you say you want. When you take a vacation, Brandon, you're gone for 2 weeks. We have to be ready and capable of keeping, well, I think the metaphor I used last time was like keeping the tent stakes down, even when the wind is blowing, and like have this be stable. And that requires delegation. That requires you building out processes for us to be capable and confident. And I'll tell you, that was one of my favorite moments is when you came back and we had our leadership meeting, and we all kind of had this glow on our face about like, look what we did. Like the ship is still sailing. Yeah. We're comfortable. Seas got a little rocky, but we handled it. And that it took time, and it took process building, and it took us kind of taking our own medicine when it came to Accounting Practice Academy. Yeah. And like using our own tools. Yeah.
And it takes planning. I mean, I don't want to say this is easy, because none of this is really, it's easy conceptually, but it's the carrying it out and taking action. That's the real, the real thing. So it does take planning and work ahead of that vacation. And, it does take work when you get back. Like
Mhm.
it's not totally like taking care of it for you, but yeah,
But if you're not, if oh, go ahead.
no, I'm just saying, I think it just makes it happen. Like it is a force mechanism,
Yeah.
when especially if you pay for plane tickets in a a booking somewhere. Like that's the
Yep.
key, is like go somewhere, like,
Yeah.
and leave the technology behind. Like don't take your laptop, don't take, like, yeah, just go off the grid.
I mean, and it's one of the smallest little implementations. But I just had a firm owner who went through the workshop, and she was like, "What do I need to do?" I go, "Buy another phone." I literally said, "Have a work phone, have a travel phone, and a life phone, and don't give anybody at work this phone number.
Yeah.
It's not allowed." And she
Right.
did that. And she's like, "Oh my god, it works." Like you're saying, it's the simplest little thing, but it's not always as easy taking the steps and actually implementing it. So it
Yep.
works. Buy a second phone.
Yep.
Yeah, love it. All right, we are on to poll number 3. I'm gonna go ahead and shoot this one up. Where roughly are your guys' yearly owner hours? Go ahead and answer in that real quick, and we can chat about it. This is often a big one. Yep. Looking at a lot of high owner hours, nearly 3,000. A good amount coming around to 2,000. Gotcha. Nice, yeah,
Oh,
around
yeah,
2K.
less than
Okay,
1,000. That's good. That's
there we
awesome.
go. Welcome to the party. Yeah,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, a majority are looking like they're sitting in the around 2,000. So I guess, how can you speak to that a little bit real quick?
Well, the benchmark, we use is like keep it under 2. Like if you can keep it 2 or under, that's pretty good. Like, if you're ambitious, go for less than 1,000. It can be done. I had a
Mhm.
firm owner that we sold last year. He had about $1.5 million practice and 5 hours a week owner hours. Now he had some other businesses, but yeah, 5 hours a week. I tell people that, they're like, no way. Well, if you got the right team, you can do it.
Yeah. If you just become a visionary that's pointing the direction of the ship and making high level decisions, and you
Yeah.
know that you've got somebody handling what's below that,
Yeah.
you can cut them down.
Yeah. And it didn't happen overnight for him, but he had some things, he had some really good other business things that pulled him out of the practice. And so not that he didn't have a choice, but it would have been a bad choice if he had stayed in the practice, because his opportunity cost would have been so high. Because he made a lot more money in one of the other companies. And so kind of forced him to do that.
Yeah, love it. Coming on to our next question. Do buyers want to buy firms with 3,000 owner hours per year?
This is a really quick slide. No.
Yeah. No, they do not.
It's too much.
Yeah. Talk about how that looks to a buyer.
It looks like, the first thing they do is have that reaction, like, the second thing they do is like, okay, is there enough margin in here so I can hire lots of help? Okay, if the margin's there, then maybe it's a go. If the margin's not there, it's a pass.
Mm-hmm.
That's the typical reaction.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, these kind of owner hours, even in around 2,000 or a little bit more, it's not just your ecosystem that's being affected, it's your teams. And that is something to really take into account. I mean, Brandon, you always say, like, think about the pressure that has if you're in there till 7, 8 at night, what that pressure is on your team.
What we tend to see is higher turnover on the staff if the owner's working these kind of hours, for a number of reasons. The pressure is one. Sometimes those are grumpy owners, not always. Like, I think some people just love to work and it's their life, and they love taxes and they love working, and they end up with that kind of schedule. But even then, I think the team I don't know. I just see higher turnover of the team. Is
Yeah.
my observation. So turnover is super expensive. So the margins aren't always what you would think with that many owner hours. Now, sometimes I will admit, like sometimes I see owners that are putting in 2,500 hours a year and they've got relatively small teams, and because the owner is just incredibly productive and they're just fast, they just get a lot done and they add a lot of value very quickly, and the margins are great. But still, that's a hard person to replace. So when you look at a sale, and this business is built around the high productivity of the owner, that's a hurdle for buyers, and it's a
Yeah.
real hurdle. Like, because anytime you buy a practice, there's a learning curve. So you can't expect your productivity to match the owner always. Now, unless you've operated at that level and you can do it, right? So, but there aren't that many people. I mean, let's face it, finding those people is not always easy. And then they have to want to do it, right? So, there might be people that can do it, but do they want to? And what we're seeing in the marketplace is there's far fewer people that want to.
Yep. I feel it. I hear it. It's just a matter of how and when.
Yep.
So yeah, love it. One thing we are going to do real quick, we're about to transition into the Q&A. I want to share a little video with you guys. That's just quick little 1-minute video about Accounting Practice Academy. Share this with you guys and then we'll hop into some Q&A.
This would have made me more successful much earlier.
This is going to get me my life back.
I mean, I can skip at a minimum 10 years worth of heartache.
Everything that was there, we did. And the bottom line just kept increasing and kept increasing and kept increasing.
I mean, it was like the clouds cleared. And all of a sudden I could see what I had to do.
Unless you have a really, really strong network of CPAs that you can interact with, you need to sign up and do it.
There are like 20 nuggets in this thing that would all allow the course to pay for itself and then some.
If they like the way they lived for the past 10, 12 months, then all they got to do is don't take the Accounting Practice Academy and just go ahead and stay busy, busy, busy.
A person could do so much reading and so much self-learning and catch a snippet of something here and a snippet there, but I really felt that this is comprehensive. It's hands down some of the best money I will ever spend.
Cool. All right. I'm going to launch one last poll and then we'll do some Q&A. So this one is, would you like to hear from us either about Accounting Practice Academy, about Poe Group Advisors if you're thinking about buying or selling, or both? Anytime we watch that video, one thing that always stands out is Eric Pelton say like, if you just want to stay busy, 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 and I just, that like gets stuck in my head as a little earworm. Yeah. Never forget about it. I love it. Yeah. And as you guys are filling out that poll, start dropping some questions in the chat as well. We're going to open up we're going to get off the screen share. We're going to allow you guys to unmute if you want to just talk out the questions. We're really conversational and casual here. So we love hearing from you guys, and I've got some questions queued up. So maybe I can prompt some more in you guys. So yeah, let's do it. All right.
Well, does anybody have any questions yet, or do we want to just kind of go into some of the more common Q&A?
Here we go. Kevin's coming in. What resources do you have regarding transitioning a traditional CPA firm to the cloud?
Well, we've got some really good podcasts. So one of our podcast is really well followed. If you haven't listened to it, we have some amazing guests on there, and we've had several that have talked about that conversion. I would say go and listen to some of our most recent ones. What do you remember? Or maybe Amanda, if you could search the most recent.
Alex Dawes is a cloud firm, and she did incredible work. She sold through us because she was just like, I built this thing incredibly rapidly. It was a ton of fun. I'm ready to go do real estate.
Yeah. But so I said go to the podcast and talk. We've talked to several people that have had that conversion. There's a guy named Tate Henshaw that converted. They actually attempted to convert once and failed, and then came back at it a second time and succeeded. It's a really interesting podcast to hear, like why it failed the first time and what were the keys to making it successful when they succeeded. So I'd start with Tate.
Yeah. And this isn't quite to your question, but we did just finish a book. Well, Brandon finished a book.
Yep.
He's the brains behind the operation. That's all about scaling your cloud accounting firm. And you're not scaling just yet, but I think it might give you, it might, here, I'll send the link as well. Might give you some perspective and some ideas about what profitable and easier to manage firms are doing, so that way you can start with that groundwork already kind of laid.
Yep.
Yeah. Love it. We got some more questions. Does APA help with establishing fees?
Yes. So one of our modules, and if you want to know what's in APA, Ian, maybe you share the link with the 8 module descriptions.
Yeah.
That's a good way to see kind of specifically what each week covers. And one of, I believe it's week 5 is all about pricing. And so we go into, into more detail on pricing. And we also, one of the things we do is we give a lot of resources when people sign up. And one of those is a really if you want to go step by step and implement value pricing, we offer a full guide on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with that, if you hop in, we send you a binder with kind of all the tools that are all going to be on the portal and on the website, but we'll send you a couple other books. Another one that we actually didn't mention today, which we talked about on past webinars, is one for hiring specifically. And that was Gina Pellegrini's The Hiring Advantage. That one we give to everybody because it's a really practical process. I know, Brandon, you like that. So
I like anything that's pragmatic. It's got to be easy to implement. It's got to be, if you had time to recreate the wheel, you wouldn't really be interested in the program.
Yeah, you also wouldn't be an accountant if you had that kind of time.
Yeah, if you had that kind of time, right? So we try to make everything really super easy to implement, easy in terms of how to get started. A lot of times starting is the big thing, right? It's like you just have to start somewhere, even if it's not going to be perfect. That's the thing that people have to realize. Like if you're implementing change, you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. But if, and the other thing that we do is we help you calculate the risk beforehand. So I think that's the key is, okay, the analysis, step back, let's look at things from a broad perspective. And when we take that scalpel and we start cutting, we know we're cutting fat. We know that we're not cutting into the stuff that matters.
Yeah. Even just week 1, we dive into a client list analysis, and it's all about a word that always comes to mind is low risk. If you're going to pick up that scalpel and you're going to try to trim or prune, you want to be really intentional about it. Yeah. And that because it's a scary process. I mean, price increases and pruning and letting go of people, it's scary and it's tough, and you don't want to just be willy-nilly with it. And that's why we always say it's not paint by numbers. This is unique to what your firm holds and what you are looking for and how you want to grow. So yeah, you really there's so much in the workshop and there's so much practical stuff to implement, and you really kind of step away with a game plan, a high level view of what maybe the next 10 years look like, 5 years, 3 years down the road, to what you need to start working on right now. Yeah, I love it. Another question: what advice does APA give on pricing for specific firms seeing covers all of North America? I didn't quite get that.
I think what they're saying is, like, how can you be specific? How can you give pricing guidance when markets are so different? Well, our guidance is to figure out your market. Everybody's market's different. I mean, every CPA's pricing right now, well, not everybody, but there's a lot of variation in pricing just with the people that are on this webinar today. So this is not a paint by numbers workshop. It's not. We want you to think. We want you to come in here, look at your situation. What's the right step for you to take? What's the right pricing for your clients? And give you a methodology for figuring that out. But it's not paint by numbers.
Mm-hmm. I think I always go back to Mario's testimonial. He's like, I rolled out price increases and I doubled my prices and nobody batted an eye. I didn't lose a single client. He's like, I was hoping to lose more of you.
Yeah.
And nobody left. And so he did some trimming and he's like, now I have some capacity. I'm getting referrals and new clients. They have not stopped coming in. And I'm just quoting them 4X or 5X what I was doing before.
Yeah.
And nobody's saying anything. And so he's like, I was so undervaluing my services.
I mean, the thing about this thing is we're going to challenge you. The people in the workshop are going to challenge you. This is going to make you think. It's going to expand. It's a lot of it's about mindset, because you have to have the confidence to do price increases. You have to have the confidence to, clarity. I feel like clarity and confidence are closely related. So when you do the work and you do the analysis, then you have the confidence to make those decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think confidence, and I'm making this idea up on the spot right now, is confidence is a reduction of fear.
Yeah.
So if we can make it low risk, if we can be intentional and kind of take the fear out of the equation as much as possible, you get more confident and you start to take action. And so and then it's just exposure therapy. You start small. We really are about what's the low risk and then build up to the more pivotal clients. So yeah, I love that. Want to ask kind of some boilerplate questions just about the workshop. I have a feeling some of you guys might be interested in what all it's about. What is the investment in APA?
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, the investment is $7,500 US. I think you'd be hard pressed not to recapture that very quickly. If you think about the lifetime value of one client, what is that number? But there's also a time investment, which also has a huge rate of return. So the time investment is about 3 hours per week, and you have to do the work. You have to be committed to that time investment, but it's going to pay so much dividends in terms of hours returned down the road. But the way that 3 hours breaks out is this is a completely virtual program. So we release a module. So the sign up date tomorrow, July 15th, is the deadline to get in this workshop. The only other workshop we're going to run this year is in September. We have a week of setup. So the first week is not really work at all. It's just getting the packages out and getting the group set up. But then the following Friday, the 22nd, you'll have about 30 minutes of video content to watch. And the video content is really bite-sized. They're a series of 4 to 7 minute clips. And it's not like you have to hope for a nugget. It's going to be all nuggets. Like, it's very condensed. We've really condensed this stuff. And then, so half an hour for the video, and then about an hour of working with the tools and doing the analysis on your firm. So the homework is about an hour. And then lastly, there's an hour, but often these run over. So we have an hour Zoom call, and we group people 6 to 8 in a group, and you're not grouped with anyone in your existing market. So what that does is encourages everybody to be very open and vulnerable about what they're doing and what they're planning to do. So the Zoom groups do tend to run over, and a lot of people actually continue to meet even after the 8 weeks is over because they want to, and they find a lot of value in the community aspect of it. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how the 3 hours breaks out.
Yeah. And one thing I always think about, that or that group meeting is a really multifaceted experience. You're getting perspective from firm owners that are all kind of different builds, but that you see share the same problems. They're all working too many hours. They're at a plateau in where their gross profit is. there's so many different factors, and you start to get benchmarks on what all of these different firms are doing and how some are really going towards a niche and really focusing that and seeing the benefits of it, how some are moving towards cloud. You start to open up possibilities for where your firm could go. It really gets you up out of the weeds. Yeah.
It's a whole mastermind concept. I mean, the reason we
Mhm.
wanted to do that is we wanted to bring that mastermind concept in. And the idea is, if you've got 7 or 8 brains around a problem, somebody's going to have an experience on that. Somebody's probably been there, done that. And so there's just collective intelligence, collective wisdom in the group. That's very powerful.
And collective accountability. I mean, so many firm owners say, I wasn't going to show up to that call not having done the work.
Right.
And that's another force mechanism, keeping the ship moving in the right direction. So yeah, it's awesome. Guys, keep tossing questions in the chat. I've got a couple more lined up. So Brandon, what's something that this is a little bit less about the workshop itself and more about just high quality firms? What's an example, or how would you describe a highly focused firm?
A highly focused firm is they've identified what work they're doing that's providing them the most satisfaction and the highest margin, or potentially the highest margin. And they're just weeding out everything else. I think it's pretty common when you start a firm or you grow a firm. So a client asks you for something that's not in your normal service offerings. You're like, yeah, okay, that would be interesting work. Maybe I can do this one audit, or I can do this one estate, or and then before you know it, you're doing a few more, but you never really, you're just spreading your practice too thin. I think the best example of that in the US is the audit work. If I see a firm that's doing 4 or 5 audits, or just a handful, if you analyze that, like Ian mentioned this earlier, if you do the hard kind of numbers on like what's going into that and what kind of actual profit margin you have on that, you're probably losing money. And you're definitely losing money if you look at opportunity cost. So in order to really offer lots and lots of different multiple lines of business, you got to have a bigger firm so that you have people that can focus on things. If you're a sole proprietor or even a 2-partner firm, and you're trying to do multiple lines, like if you're trying to do wealth management, audit, tax, payroll, I don't know, there's a lot of things people get into, business valuation, estate and trust work. There's all expert testimony, like pick.
Yeah. Stop being the one-stop shop. Yeah. Niche down. Find one thing you can do really well, and people will pay you a lot of money to do it.
Yeah. Now, if you got 4 or 5 partners, and one wants to focus on being your audit partner, and one's a wealth management partner, okay, that works. But yeah, love it. Well, guys, we are at 10:59, and we like to be respectful and conscientious of your guys' time. So if there are no more questions coming in, thank you. Thanks for hopping on. Thanks for joining us. And for those of you who said you'd like to be contacted, I'll touch base and we'll sort some things out. But we appreciate your time on this Thursday. Yeah.
Brandon,
thanks,
any last
everybody.
words? Yeah.
No, just, hey, get in there. Do it.
Yeah.
You won't be sorry. You'll be happy you did.
Yeah.
All
right. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast. If you like what you heard today, please follow us so that you can get updates when new episodes are released, and share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. You can also follow Poe Group Advisors on social media. Please visit our website for more information at pogroupadvisors.com.